Good morning, my dear students. In our previous classes, we have discussed the deductions which are expressly allowed as per section 30 to 37. So, under this, almost all deductions we are covered and discussed up to 35E. Now we have section 36 and 37. So, that's all about the section 30 to 37. So today we would like to discuss some deductions which are included other deductions and general deductions. See, first one, other deductions. We have discussed 35E. We have discussed 35 up to 35E. Now we have two more deduction, 36 and 37. First we will discuss 36. 36 deals with the other deductions, which means various expenses which are allowed as a deductions for obtaining the taxable profit. So let us see in brief. First one, insurance premium. Any insurance premium paid for risk or damage of stock or stores for the business or profession will be deductible. The next, insurance premium of life of cattle. Suppose our business is cattle. So any insurance premium paid by Federal Milk Cooperative Society on the life of any cattle. So that is also allowed as a deduction. Then health insurance premium for employees. Any amount which is paid as a health insurance premium paid by check by the employer, that is allowed as a deduction. Then bonus or commission paid to an employee for service rendered by him. Interest on borrowed capital in respect of money borrowed for the purpose of business or profession. The next, discount on zero coupon bond. That means any amount of discount on issue of zero coupon bond which is allowed as a deduction. The next, employees contribution to RPF, employees contribution to recognized provident fund or approved superannuation fund is allowed as a deduction. All these are shown on the debit side of the profit and loss account. It is allowable deductions. Okay. Then next, that is employer contribution to an approved gratuity fund. That means any amount of contribution to a pension scheme under section 80 CCD on account of an employee up to 10% of salary of the employee in the previous year is allowed as an expenditure. So you have to remember that only 10% of salary is allowed as a deduction towards this. Salary means basic salary plus DA only for terms of employment. Then next, that continue, loss of animals. Loss of animals. That loss of animals means any amount incurred as a loss of animals used for the purpose of business or profession. Such animals have dead or have become permanently unless or for the purpose of such business or profession, that is allowed as a deduction. That is a normal or natural loss, that is allowed as a deduction. Then next one, that is employer's contribution to the approved statutory welfare scheme. Any amount or employer's contribution to the statutory approved staff welfare fund is allowed as a deduction under this scheme. The next, contribution to the pension scheme, that is allowed as a deduction. Here also one important thing, that is 10% of salary is allowed. The next, bad debt. You know, bad debt is written off, that is irrevocable in nature in the books of accounts, that is allowed as a deduction. The next, provision for bad and doubtful debts. This term also you are very familiar. This is also allowed as a deduction subject to the maximum of 8.5% of total income before making deduction under ATC to ATU. Then next, transfer of any special reserve. Suppose in financial accounting we are transferred many reserve, general reserve or special reserve like that. So transfer to a special reserve. Any public financial corporation engaged in long-term finance for industrial, agricultural development or infrastructure development, they are allowed as this deduction. The next, family planning expenditure. Any amount which is incurred by the company for the purpose of promoting family planning among the employees is allowed as a deduction. Then this deduction is allowed, 1/5 of the expenditure will be allowed for 5 years of which such expenditure has been incurred. Okay, so total on, suppose we have committed 1 lakh rupees, 20,000 can be for 5 years. Okay, the next security transaction cost, transaction tax. Any amount of security transaction paid in a course of business shall be allowed as a deduction. So these are all the important deductions. Then we have many deductions like commodity transactions tax, expense in connection with income tax proceedings, like etc etc. So these are all the deductions which are expressly allowed as per section 36. We call it as a other deduction. Now one more head we have, that is a section 37(1), general deduction. General deduction is applicable to all business. That includes general expenses. General expense, we know any expenses incurred in day-to-day running of the business. Such expense, cost of raw material, tools, spares, labors, etc etc. So allowed as a deduction. Then interest means wholly or exclusively for the purpose of business is allowed as a deduction. Then expenditure on raising loans, we know these also allowable deduction, like brokerage, like that, legal charges, etc etc. Then any legal expenses which is particularly for business purposes is allowed as a deduction. And here on important thing, that is legal expenses on criminal prosecutions are not deductible, it's personal in nature. Then expenditure on advertisement, then next damage paid, any amount which is paid to a worker in order to dismiss him in the interest of business, it is allowed as a deduction. Then commission paid to selling agent. Then expense incurred on certain occasion like Diwali or Muharram, subject to the assigning officer being satisfied that the expenses are admissible as a deduction, then only we can deduct this amount as allowable expenses. The next professional tax, we are discussed in salary what is meant by professional tax. It is a tax which is levied by the municipal authority from the salary class. This suppose in business also there are some municipal tax which is allowed as a deduction. It is shown on the debit side of the profit and loss account. The next periodical payment for the use of goodwill. The next annual listing charges which is paid to the stock exchanges for getting listed. So these are all the important deductions which is particularly in general as per section 37. All these are allowable deductions. So we have discussed with the section 30 to 37 deductions. All these are permissible deductions which are taken into consideration while we are preparing income from profit from business or profession. Then next we have a discussion regarding expenses expressly disallowed, that we will be discussed in our next video. Okay, thank you.